Every year around this time, I start to get really excited about setting up my planner system for next year. Hi everyone, I'm Sarika, and in this video, I've tried out 12 different monthly layout ideas that I may or may not use for my 2025 planner. I think at this point, it's safe to say that I do a combination of bullet journaling and creating my own minimal, simple planner. Today, I'm experimenting in one of my own notebooks that fits into a standard size traveler's notebook. These are available at my website, sarikastudio.com, and they have a 3.5mm grid. Of course, you can always adapt any of these layout ideas into the notebook of your choice. You just kind of have to count the number of rows and columns and adjust it from there. This first layout is inspired by the Hobonichi weeks, which does feature in my planner lineup for next year. I mean, it's a great layout, and I wanted to see what it would look like if it was slightly bigger. I'm using a mechanical pencil and a ruler, and besides the ability to erase just in case I make a mistake, I also like how subtle the pencil is. It's not overbearing or too dark. Now we're left with a grid of 7x9 boxes for each of the days. Throughout this video, I'll also be experimenting with different ways to write the dates and the months, but I think for my actual planner, I'm going to stick with one cohesive style for all 12 months. This is a nice way to test out different styles. I used a waterproof ink to write all of my dates because I want to make sure that nothing smears or smudges when I use my planner throughout the year. I used my letter stamps to mark the first 3 letters of the word January, and then in order to get a sense of how the calendar would look and how it would function, I went ahead and decorated it with a few stickers and wrote some fake events down in the calendar. I used my monthly calendar to mark down appointments, due dates, deadlines, and special occasions. This is a great layout if you have a lot of things to write within the actual boxes. I wanted to try a calendar that had more space to write whatever you want at the top. I started drawing everything out from the bottom and I made my way up. Instead of making the boxes 7x9, I made them 7x8, so it's slightly smaller. For this one, I left an extra column on the left, so there's 8 columns instead of 7, and I figured this could be a little space to write notes for the week, similar to how the Take a Note planner has a column. For this one, I used a brush pen to letter the month instead of using stamps, and I really like that look. I filled it out with my examples again and added a few stickers, and I even made a little sleep tracker and I wrote a section for focus and intentions. You really can do whatever you want for the month, like make a running task list or something like that. Personally, I don't really make much use of habit trackers, especially on the monthly view, but I do like to list out a few big priorities for each month. I really like how this one turned out, and I think it looks very balanced with having that extra column. This next one looks very similar to the one I did for January, except I have 6 weeks instead of 5, and that's because on some of the months you're going to have days that go past the 5-week mark, so you're going to need more rows. And I wanted to see how it would look with the calendar going all the way from the top to the bottom of the page. So this is my slight variation off of the first idea. I'm keeping it very minimal with the stickering. Of course, if this were my actual planner and not just an example, I'd probably do more stickers, more decoration, and more writing, but I really just wanted to give a sense of what it would look like if this were an actual calendar. Since that last one was so similar to the first layout, I decided to do something completely different for the fourth layout. We're going to make a small calendar. Each of the dates is only 4x4, so there's not really a lot of room to write at all. So I wanted to see how that would work as a monthly layout. This is completely new to me. I've never done anything like this in my actual bullet journals or planners, so this is all a big experiment. The idea is to use dot stickers to reference different events that you would correspond to a running list of all the dates, very similar to how the actual bullet journal method functions on the monthly view. So in this next section here, I'm writing all of the dates in a column, and I delineated 2 rows for each of the days. So eventually I ran out of room, and I wasn't very structured with this part at all. I didn't make any boxes or grids, and of course I didn't plan out how I was going to lay it all out, which led me to not really like this view at all. So I kind of gave up on it. And even writing all of these fake events, I just kind of got tired of it. So I slapped some stickers down, and I'm going to do a better version of this later on. Honestly, I should have known that I prefer more structure, not only aesthetically like with my previous layout that I just did, but also in my life in general. I recently learned how to use Notion to further organize my life and increase my productivity, and it was so easy to learn thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. So I'm no stranger to Notion, but through Ali Abdal's masterclass on Notion, I learned how to do way more powerful stuff, like how to create databases and do different views, and how to create a life OS and basically organize every aspect of my personal and professional life. Besides that, there are just so many things that I want to learn on Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creative people like you and me, with thousands and thousands of classes led by industry experts across all the categories that you could possibly think of. There are classes on filmmaking, photography, how to draw, how to paint, how to sew your own clothes, how to cook, how to build a website, how to start a business, and you can take your hobby or your passion to the next level. I'm always trying to hone my craft or improve my skills, and that's why I really like Skillshare's learning paths. These are curated sequential classes on a certain topic that will take you from a beginner to an advanced level. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a free 1-month trial of Skillshare. So in 1 month, you could pick up a skill or many skills by joining Skillshare. For this calendar, I decided to only do the horizontal lines going across, and I did not do any vertical lines just to see how it would look with a more open layout. And I do like how it looks. I did a little double line at the top, and then I wrote out all the days in cursive, and then I did a brush lettering for the month. And I think this look is very elegant and it's functional, and you can write events across multiple days. But I think for me, I do prefer having the vertical lines. I just wanted to test it out and see what it would look like without it. It's a very open and clean look. Moving right along to the 6th idea. For this calendar, I'm really just playing around with using a different stamp set and then also doing darker lines instead of doing brown or pencil. I'm using the black ink. Oh, I dropped my stamp there, but everything was okay. And I used the same black ink that I was using to write all of the events and stuff. I wanted to see how it would look with a waterproof black line. It's very bold, and I think it's good for anyone who wants a very clear structure for their calendar. I think personally, I do like the subtlety of the pencil or the brown, but I think it's just good for me to get it out of my system and see what it actually looks like. So I stuck down some black stickers everywhere. I just kept going with that whole concept of black and monochrome, and it's very bold. I like it a lot. It's very minimalistic, and the calendar itself looks very similar to all the other ones I had been doing. Like I said, these are very similar layouts, just slight tweaks to each one. That being said, I did try to challenge myself to be a little bit more creative with this one, and instead of doing the usual big calendar, I wanted to try a medium-sized calendar that sits in the middle of the page. And I'm going back to pencil just because this was a new one that I've never done before. I wanted to be able to erase anything that I wanted. So this one's smaller. It's only 6 boxes by 7. So a little bit less space to write things. So there's a little gap in the middle that isn't quite the same width as two of the grid boxes, but I decided to just like go with it anyway. The columns for Wednesday and Thursday are a lot more narrow than the other ones, and it just doesn't look very balanced. I also didn't do any vertical lines for this one, and it was a little bit confusing when I went to write in my fake events. Overall, this was a good first try. I do like how subtle everything is. I also opted for a very faint and pastel kind of color scheme, so I like the look of it. I think this layout would be perfect for anyone who likes to write a lot of information on the margins of their planner, or if you are someone who likes to decorate your planner a lot. You like to add a lot of washi tape, a lot of stickers and whatnot. This would be a perfect layout. If you look closely at this process of me writing my fake events, you'll notice that I got a little bit confused with the lack of vertical lines, and I started to write things not really centered. I left aligned a lot of things, and so I personally feel like this calendar could do with a little bit more structure. I didn't really think through the columns and how everything was going to be laid out. So I'm going to try again with this next layout. And I'm going to do a smaller, medium-sized calendar, but I'm going to add more structure, and I'm going to make each of the columns the exact same width, except for the one on the left. Now that we're on the 8th idea, I have a pretty good sense of what I want for my actual calendar, and at this point I'm just having fun and experimenting with different ideas. So hopefully this inspires you if you are going to be making your own bullet journal to plan your year. I'm just having fun with it. I think that is a core pillar of my planning philosophy, is that it should be fun. I find stationery very comforting and very fulfilling. And even though I have all of these digital tools at my fingertips, and I've learned so much about using Notion, and I share a lot of note-taking apps and team-building apps with my small team to run my business, I think I can't totally avoid digital products for planning, but I'm not going to give up my analog tools either, because it's such a big part of my life and it adds so much to the enjoyment of my life, which I think is very, very important. But I'm probably preaching to the choir here. If you are watching bullet journal videos or any sort of videos like this, you probably understand why we do this, right? But anyway, here is the 8th idea. I went with a little coffee theme, and I do like this one. I think for a medium-sized calendar, it is quite functional. I'm able to cram like 2 things in each of the little boxes, and I think it turned out really well. Alright, so for this next one, I'm doing another attempt at having no calendar, or rather, having a mini calendar that you don't really write in, and then just kind of listing out all the days in a long column. So I put one of my mini calendars in the top left corner, and if you remember in the April idea, I didn't really do a lot of structure. So for this one, I'm doing lots of boxes, really counting things out, and I've divided up the dates in half. So because there's 30 days in September, it's an even number. I can put 15 days on one side and the rest on the other. And I think that makes for a more balanced, structured layout. This is the closest layout you're gonna get to the actual bullet journal monthly log. So in the actual bullet journal method, what you do is write down all of the dates in a long column, and then you write the letter of the corresponding day. So like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I did not do that, I forgot. So I just highlighted the weekend dates with a mild liner, and it smudged a little bit. Not gonna lie, I was a little bit annoyed with that, but that's why I'm doing this, to test things out and to see what I like and don't like. And frankly, I don't really like this layout. I don't think it's functional for me. I'm a very visual person. I like my month laid out in an actual calendar format. So the bullet journal method's monthly log of having it all down in one big list didn't really work well for my brain. But for the sake of variation, I thought I would include a few layouts like this because I don't want to have a video where all of the calendars look pretty much the same. You could also do a calendar and then have another page where you're tracking your habits and you have a need for a list type of view. The possibilities are endless, and that's why blank notebooks where you design your own planner, they're so great for that. For this next layout, I am turning my notebook by 90 degrees to go into landscape mode. I wanted to try making a calendar that would make the most use out of this space, and these boxes come in at a whopping 8 by 10, which is the biggest box for each of the days that I have tried so far in this video. So this one flips up kind of like a wall calendar. I don't think I talk about this enough, but having a wall calendar just hanging up by the kitchen to write down all of the events that our family does, it's so crucial to my planning system, but I never show it because it's just a wall calendar. So I wanted to recreate that sort of system in my planner. Unfortunately, the marker that I used was very inky, very wet, and a little bit too thick in my opinion. So I decided to give it another go. This was my first attempt at making the layout, and I switched to something that wouldn't smear all over my hands and the page. I think something like a fine liner or even a gel pen would work much better if you're going for a certain color. I wanted to try using gray, but I'm gonna try again on this page, and I'm gonna go back to using my fountain pen with waterproof ink. This is just another reason why I'm so glad that I decided to experiment and try out different things before I go into my actual calendars. And if you are feeling unsure of what you want or you need a little bit of practice, I highly recommend just doing it on some scrap paper or an extra notebook that you have lying around. It doesn't even have to be the same notebook that you're using. I just happen to have a lot of samples and like test notebooks and notebooks that have flaws in them lying around, so I use those to do this so they don't go to waste. I was much happier with my second attempt, and instead of doing brush lettering all across the top, I decided to use some number stamps so that I would have more space to write other things. This layout is all about maximizing the use of space, but I did put down a few stickers because I wanted to see what it would look like. These are very autumnal, and I can't help it. I just love having a little bit of decoration to add some visual interest. I really like how this one turned out. I think it's very functional. However, I don't know how I feel about having to turn my notebook at 90 degrees every so often, because I imagine the rest of the notebook would be used in portrait mode, like a regular notebook. So even though I think it's really nice, I don't think I'm going to use it, but it is a nice idea, and I'm very glad I included it amongst the other ideas in this video. I just realized I put August instead of October, but whatever, we're moving on to November. So for this month, I wanted to do another variation on February's layout. Except for this one, I wanted to make the boxes slightly bigger. They have an additional row, and I really like how this one turned out. The boxes are 7 by 9 instead of 7 by 8, but that extra row just makes all the difference. I brought out my mini calendar stickers again to add December and October to show the previous month and the upcoming month. And then I used my letter stamps to stamp out November kind of in the middle. I know this is not going to work for every single month because some months have an odd number of letters. Maybe you would just put it off to the left. I don't know. So having it in the middle might not be the best idea if you want to have all of your months look consistent across the year, but if you don't mind switching it up, you could certainly have the month be on the left and then both of the mini calendars on the right. By this point, I was getting really tired of writing out fake events and making things up, and a lot of the things I wrote are pretty unhinged. So if you zoom in and you catch anything very weird and funny, just keep in mind it's already down to the 11th layout. I have no idea what to write anymore. At one point I wrote we were going to a vibes only pet tournament. I've never heard of that. Maybe it should be a thing. I don't think our pets would win because they're kind of nuts. But at the end of this calendar I wrote, hello, are you okay? Because I am getting really tired. But we're going to push through. We have one more calendar left to do. We're going to come full circle, do something very similar to the first and third layout, except I'm going to have a little box that goes across that encapsulates each of the numbers. And I didn't do that yet, so I wanted to see what that would look like and whether I liked it or not. It's a lot of structure. It's very similar to how the Hobonichi is structured. And I think it's cool. I think you could add some color coding in each of those little boxes in that line. You could add signifiers or different icons for color coding and indexing. Lots of options there. So this was my last little deco session. I just added a few berries and stars, some pine cones, and then it was time to make up some stuff. Wow, I cannot believe I just did 12 different layout ideas. They are all different in some way. I mean, they're still all in my style, which is minimal, simple, yet functional. So I hope this was interesting for you. If you have a similar style or want to try something like this, here's a little flip through of all of them again, just to recap. And personally, I'm leaning towards something like the one I did for January, February, March, even May or November. But I'm really surprised at how much I enjoyed the other ones that I never thought I would do. And it was really good practice and experimentation. If you are going to be bullet journaling or creating your own planner for next year, let me know which one of these layouts was your favorite, whether you are inspired to recreate one of these in your own bullet journal or use it as a starting point to adapt it and make it your own. And just another reminder, you can adapt any of these to the notebook of your choice. I prefer a small grid, so I have my own 3.5mm grid notebooks. I love the Traveler's Notebook covers and the whole system, so I'm going to just try to stick to one standard size notebook. There are 100 pages of Tomoe River paper in this notebook, so I think I've calculated enough pages to last me for the whole year. I love using the monthly views, but I don't really need a lot of pages for weeklies or dailies, and so that's just going to be like freeform for me. So that is why I am using this type of notebook. But if you have a notebook that has more pages, definitely use the one that's right for you. I think November has got to be my favorite layout. I think the size of the calendar is perfect. I like that there's a column for notes. So I think this is going to be the one that I recreate on every single month for 2025. And so I'll do a little video showing that whole thing once I've set it up. But yeah, thanks for joining me for this 12 monthly layout idea video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.